Chart that transition for me briefly.
What I looked at then was how did we get out of the kleptocratic control of our economies and politics in those days? And the rather sad answer that I came on is it really took the repeated global calamities of the first half of the 20th century to sort of generate a kind of solidarity ethos. And by that I mean 2 world wars, 2 genocides, use of the nuclear weapon, and a gigantic pandemic and a gigantic global economic meltdown. That bought us about 40, 45 years of gradual, hard-fought reform. And then starting in about 1980, it's almost like the generation aged out, and we went back to first the worship of money, and that means the use of money as the yardstick to measure our social success. And once you do that, you start getting coalitions of the super rich, of multimillionaires, getting together to figure out how they can rig the rules to benefit their network. And we're back into systemic corruption. And that really starts to take hold in the 1990s and continues through to today.
You argue that the Trump administration has seen what you want to call self-dealing taken to new extremes. And what are the issues in the public domain?
Obviously, the trading of U.S. public policy with Ukraine for an action by Ukraine that would benefit President Trump. But you could also look at the majority leader of the Senate, Mitch McConnell, and his wife, who was the Minister or Secretary of Transportation. Her department gave something like $80 million in grants to top donors to Mr. McConnell's re-election campaign. I would even say that that very marriage violates the principle of separation of powers. I mean, how can the Congress exercise proper oversight over the executive branch when you have the leader of the top house of Congress who is married to a senior executive branch official? Right there, you're dismantling some of the anti-corruption curbs in the U.S. government.
Your Hydra analogy suggests that fighting corruption in America is not as simple as replacing one president with another. Is there a danger of too much optimism on the part of those who voted for Joe Biden?
I'm afraid you're right. I think that's a very good way of putting it, but just not to depress everyone, what I would say is that means we all need to get in the fight. And I would say in the UK as well as the US, so just a note on the enormous enabling role that is played by UK secrecy jurisdictions and in particular the property market. I mean, that's where a lot of corrupt actors, go to place their money. And I think that if you start looking for the networked relationships across public and private sector, even in the United Kingdom, you might see some very similar patterns to what I've been describing in the United States. That means it's up to us to absolutely hold our own leadership up to its highest standard. And that means civic demands. It means maybe asking our candidates to sign some kind of an ethics pledge that when they get into position, they will do things like reinforce laws against what we call the revolving door, that is, switching positions shortly after you've been in government, taking a high-ranking business position or a consulting position in the very same field, conflicts of interest and recusal that people should take